Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, shalom, ciao, bonjour, namaste, ciao.
Bienvenidos! Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from our beautiful subterranean studios here in the beautiful, wonderful, historical, book-loving neighborhood of Reedville. We are so very happy that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. We hope that you'll help us spread the word about the show by telling all of your family and friends, telling your kids' teachers, the librarian, the public librarian, the crossing guard, that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Audible, Amazon Music, YouTube. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. We have a really incredible show for you today. First up, just in time for the start of the World Cup here in North America, Chris Navalta is here to celebrate inspiring stories of soccer greats. Great books for middle grade readers. Later in the show, David John Priest is here to celebrate his picture book series, Mr. Higgins. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Fart Boy and Reeky Dog, Dino Doom. Fantastic new graphic novel written by New York Times bestselling author Joan Holub, who's written over 200 amazing books for kids. It's school sleepover at the museum. What could go wrong? Well, how about this? A snack-fueled explosion of garbanzo beans and peanuts unleashes a stink so powerful it brings the dinosaurs back to life. Now, Fart Boy, Reeky Dog, and their friends are in the middle of a dino-sized disaster. They have to solve tricky riddles, find missing bones, and stop the stinkiest villain of all, Professor Gravy Pants. Because if they don't, the dinosaurs could take over. Or worse, they could become Dino Dinner. This action-packed graphic novel is bursting with friendships, adventure, and enough laughs to shake the museum walls. If your kids love superheroes, if they love dinosaurs, and if they love to laugh until they can't breathe, then Fart Boy and Reeky Dog Dino Doom is the book for you. Because sometimes the power to save the world comes from the unlikeliest place. Grab your copy today and get ready for a reading adventure that's truly dynamite. Join us right now from sunny California. I'm assuming it's sunny where our guest is. From California, our guest is here today to celebrate his new middle grade novel. It's called Inspiring Stories of Soccer Greats, just in time for the World Cup. Please welcome to the show, Chris Navalta. Chris, how are you?
I'm great, Jedley. Thank you so much for having me. And I can confirm it is very sunny here in California right now.
That's awesome. So soccer has a special place in my heart. I played for a very competitive high school team. I played for a not as competitive college team. And then I coached back at that old high school for many years. So soccer was a huge part of my life for most of my life. It is a beautiful game, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely. And no better time to share these stories now during a World Cup year. I think you could probably attest to this, but soccer is a very pure sport. You just need a ball. You may not even need a net. Mm-hmm. Some of the players that I cover in this book didn't even have either. Mm-hmm. Some of the players had to use makeshift balls that were made with plastic bags and shirts. Some played barefoot. And so it's a very simple and beautiful game to get into. And I think what I wanted to accomplish with Inspiring Stories of Soccer Greats is not only show what these players look like as superheroes the way we watch them on TV, but pull the curtain back and just have a better understanding of their backgrounds too. These are individuals who went through very real human personal stories. And I think that, kids, with different situations could relate to that. whether it's in social injustice, whether it's inequality, mental or physical health discrepancies. I think there's a little bit of something for everybody here that they can read. At least that's what I hope. And that's what I wanted to show with this book, is that it's not just a story about these great players, but everything that they went through growing up.
Yeah. And it's incredible that it's played all over the world. Maybe not in Antarctica, but I mean, every corner of the globe, you can find a soccer pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, you don't necessarily need a field. I remember going on a cruise and I just saw folks just kind of, playing soccer with, I don't remember what it was. It wasn't a ball though. Like they were just kicking things around. Like I think it is such a global sport. The U.S. is just now getting its due with the rise of MLS, which is now, I think, 30 years actually to this year. And so, like, that's what's great about this. And the game just transcends. Like, one of the things I loved about soccer, I remember in 2006, that was a World Cup year. The Ivory Coast was in the middle of civil war, and it's a little embellished, but it was pretty close. They had stopped the fighting just to watch the team play. And I think it was Didier Drogba who said, "Hey, let's talk about this. Like, is there a way we can have peace here?" And without going through the full technicalities of what happened, they did stop fighting. That's just how powerful this sport really is.
Yes, it's incredible. I'm going to guess. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to take a guess. I'm thinking that one of the greats that you mentioned in the book, maybe a guy whose name starts with P and he only has one name?
Actually, no. He is somebody that I did want to cover though. Like you cannot think about football without thinking about Pelé, the great Brazilian. And so he was definitely among my list of players that I wanted to cover. We went back and forth with my publisher, Penguin Random House and Zeitgeist Publishing, and they wanted to, with all due respect to Pelé, I wanted to cover him. They wanted to make sure that these were still players that that kids could relate to, as opposed to like somebody who was playing way back in the 50s and 60s. He was, full disclosure, he was first on my list. They wanted to go with a little bit more recent types of players. So you'll find players like Lionel Messi, you'll find players like Alex Morgan, Christian Pulisic, who's currently on the U.S. men's soccer team, Vini Jr, another up and coming Brazilian. And so those are just some, just to give you an idea of who those players are that are covered in the book.
Well, I'll reserve comment about your publishers and designers. Pele was, I think he was his time on the New York Cosmos, I think, set in motion the love, because when I played soccer, the 20 guys on my team in high school were the only 20 people in that high school who had anything to do with soccer. It wasn't a very popular sport 50 years ago. And Pele came a little bit later and, got a lot of people excited about the game.
Yeah, I was born in the 70s, so unfortunately didn't get to watch him play too much. But of course, like, I think he's almost mythical at this point, like Babe Ruth, like there's certain players that are synonymous with the sport. Babe Ruth being with baseball. Pelé is definitely with soccer. And I think during that time it was with the Cosmos. I think they even made a movie about it. Definitely brought the sport to the limelight here in the U.S. So you could argue that, because of MLS, because of players from other countries coming to play in the U.S. now, that the sport is growing, but it doesn't start without Pelé.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about some of the amazing players you are talking about. You mentioned Messi.
Yeah, so Lionel Messi, like only known as one name, just Messi. He, arguably one of the greatest current players of all time. But when he was 11 years old, he was diagnosed with something that was called growth hormone deficiency, GHD, which is a condition that basically stumps your growth. So, Messi was at 11 years old. He was playing with taller players. They thought that he was just late on growing, but he had, stayed I think he might have been like 4'8" at the time at 11 years old. And they were wondering what's going on? Why isn't he growing now? So, it wasn't until he signed with FC Barcelona that the club agreed to pay for his medication so that, he could continue his growth. So he had taken that medication until I believe he was 14 years old. And so once that was off, he's still 5'8", which is relatively, short, for lack of a better term, for a soccer player. But you can see how much he makes up for it with his footwork and his speed and his ability to even play off the ball. So, this may not have happened if, he didn't find, the resources needed to, to continue with his condition. Who knows what would have happened to him if he was living with that for all his life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, 5'8" sounds like I aspire to be 5'8" one time in my life, but I'm shrinking, so I don't think it's going to happen. What inspired you to write this book?
I think so. Taking a step back, I released a book last year called Basketball Stars, which was for an older age range, 8 to 12, and almost the same premise where I covered 10 basketball players, and talked about, their upbringings and the struggles that they went through. And so, my background is in sports writing. I worked for the Bay, for newspapers in the Bay Area after college, and I had moved on since to work in communications. But writing in sports has always been a couple of passions of mine. Mm-hmm. I thought that when I was in college, I was going to write books for 10 years, retire at age 30. I didn't realize I was not Stephen King, though, so I went a different direction. So I became a sports writer and then went on to work in communications. But I always wanted to tell stories about players and, and tell the humans stories about them. So, Basketball Stars did really well. It debuted #1 in Amazon's new releases. And so I had a discussion with my publisher about, can we do this for other sports? And so coincidentally, I mean, this was around last year, and so we were talking about the World Cup coming next year, and I wanted to tell these types of stories, and they have a series called From Challenge to Champion, which also covers different sports, and then soccer was next on their list, and they coincidentally was looking for somebody to write it. Mm-hmm. So I already had the thought in mind, so I threw my hat in the ring, and it just was very serendipitous. So, kind of, long-winded answer to your question. That's how it came together. Just because I love telling these stories to kids. It kind of, I wish I did read books like this when I was younger, because I learned who these players are because of what they accomplished on the pitch, on the court, on the football field. And it wasn't until I was older that I still really appreciated what they went through while they were growing up. And so I thought that, if we're going to teach these kids about some of the great players that made this game beautiful, why not tell the whole 360-degree story so that we would have a better appreciation, not only for who they are as players, but as individuals too.
Yeah. I love it because I think it's, we love that books can be mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. And I know there are millions of kids that are going to read this book and imagine looking in the mirror, seeing themselves maybe in the future. But at the same time, I love the fact that it can be a window so that we can look in and see the conditions that these stars grew up in and kind of learn that, we are very lucky to be living here in the States because life isn't the same in many parts of the world.
Yeah, no question about it. One of the players that's mentioned in the book, Asisat Oshoala, one of Africa's best soccer players of all time. She grew up in a traditional religious family. Parents never wanted her to play soccer, so she wound up sneaking outside to play. She would even lie, saying, "I'm going to go to the store and get some bread," which she did. So it's not like she was lying, but she didn't come home for like maybe another couple hours because she went to the field to play with her friends. And so, and these opportunities don't happen. So she winds up playing with her friends. A scout happens to be there to watch her play and really wanted her to, play pro. And she said, yes, I would love to, but you have to convince my parents to do so. So long story short, they had a conversation with their parents, and she winds up going pro. And now, being one of the best players in Africa. Now, now her parents, of course, support her. But that's like one example of these types of stories where, a lot of these players did come from impoverished areas and didn't really have the opportunities. Some were even told not to play soccer because they didn't think they were suited for it. And, and that's not even just in other countries. Alex Morgan's coach told her that she wasn't suited to make the team, that she would be better as a practice player. So it's not just, it's everywhere basically. So then that's what I want to kind of get across here is like, these are stories of perseverance, and don't let anything or anyone get in the way of following your dreams.
Yeah, I think that's so important. There's so many examples of players who've been told. I mean, famously, Michael Jordan got cut from his high school team and
High school team, yes.
went on to become the best player ever. With all due respect to my beautiful Celtics, yeah, I think that's a real important message to kids. Is if you love it, go for it, and maybe you might not be anything more than a practice player, but you're going out there and giving it your best shot and you're fighting for your dream.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Reading about some of these stories of these players, like their dream was to just be a soccer player. They didn't necessarily strive to be the greatest of all time, to win Premier Leagues or Champions Leagues. They just loved the game so much that they just wanted to play, and so the fact that there are things or people that actually get in the way from something that you love doing, it's kind of it's ridiculous for me to think that that there are those types of barriers.
Right.
So I think that's why I like to look at inspiring stories of soccer greats as more as just a sports book. It's there's a lot of life lessons here too about not giving up and to persevere. And so hopefully I was able to let that shine through with these stories.
Yeah. Where does your love for sport come from?
Oh, yeah, I think it goes back to as far back as I can remember. I probably started watching sports in the third grade. The very first game I went to was an Oakland A's game because my dad was an A's fan, the only A's fan in the family, whereas everybody else are Giants fans here in the Bay Area. And I think after that, being among a large crowd of people and seeing them cheer when something cool happens, like a home run, and then like watching the 49ers during their heyday, I grew up in the 80s, so I did get to watch Montana and Rice and Roger Craig and seeing their dynasty years. There's something about it. They say that sports is its own soap opera, right? Because there's so much drama unfolding. Who's going to take that last shot at the buzzer? Can you hit that walk-off home run in the bottom of the ninth inning? There's something about it that just gives me a different range of emotions. It's not to say that all I saw were the victories. I saw a lot of heartache too, with the Oakland A's later on in the early 2000s when they, during those Moneyball years, and they couldn't even get out of the first round. So, but that's what comes with being a fan for your team, and I totally own that, and I wouldn't trade those experiences for anything. I'm just so passionate about it. I mentioned before that I was a sports writer back in my early career. And so it's always cool to see what unfolds. I don't believe what the conspiracy theories say, that it's all scripted or anything like that. Like, if it was scripted, then, there wouldn't be so many heartbroken Cubs fans out there. I think we'd want to see happy Cubs fans. And, and even when your Red Sox won the World Series, like that should have happened years ago if we really think that sports is scripted. So that's where my passion comes from.
Yeah. Boy, you mentioned a number of players that you feature in the book. Do you have a favorite?
So the favorite chapter I wrote was actually about Leicester City, the Premier League team that won in 2015, 2016. Just because, like, when you think of the Premier League, you think of Manchester United, you think of Arsenal, you think of Tottenham Hotspur, Liverpool. Those are the teams that are, quote unquote, supposed to win the Premier League. Whereas Leicester City, just the season prior to that year, was on the verge of relegation, and they went on a streak to survive. So they wind up playing that 2015-16 year with 5,000 to 1 odds of winning the whole thing. And that is astronomical. I think when the Warriors won the NBA title in 2015, they were 2,500 to 1. So this is double the odds. And they didn't do it with just one person. Like Jamie Vardy was the leading scorer, but there were other players involved too that was all part of that run. And it wasn't, and, I talked about dramatics before, but they were just very consistent the whole time. And nobody saw them coming until it was too late. And before you know it, they won their first Premier League title in their club history. And I think they're now relegated. I think they're back to, I guess, where they're supposed to be. But for one moment, you had a team that had no business winning the Premier League. And it's going to be talked about forever. That may literally never happen again to a club like Leicester City. And it was I like covering underdogs, and I love hearing about the story of overcoming insurmountable odds. And that actually became like one of my favorite chapters to write. It was so inspiring to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me, in researching the book, did you have a chance to talk to any of the stars?
I didn't. I would have liked to. I think that being able to talk to them would have added a lot of depth to it. And I ran into the same thing with basketball stars because some of the players that I cover there are players that I personally know. But then the whole process would have been, well, we need to fact check everything, and then it would have been a whole separate process in itself. So it was more of just researching what we already have as public knowledge, and then fact checking in that sense. Otherwise, if players were to be quoted or to tell their account, then we'd have to add that extra layer of talking to the players themselves. But I'm a journalist at heart, so of course that would be the one thing that I would love to have done. But of course I understand that process and why that would create more issues than it needs to be.
Interesting. We love talking to authors and asking them, what kind of conversations do you think families can have as they're experiencing a great middle grade novel like Inspiring Stories of Soccer Greats? So what kind of conversation do you think parents and kids can have about this book?
Yeah, I think I always like to start off. Well, first, a couple of things. I think, we see Messi now toward the end of his career, and when kids are asking, how good was Messi really? Because this age range wasn't really around when Messi was at his prime. So that's like the first conversation I would hope that they would have. How good was Lionel Messi back then? How good was Alex Morgan? Or have you heard of this Vini Jr.? So from an X's and O's standpoint, I would like to have, I would hope that they would have those types of conversations. But another one, and I think this is more important, I think that once a child puts down this book, I would hope that maybe they could talk to their parents like, can I play this game too? And it doesn't matter what their situation is. Mm-hmm. They could even, those who are able-bodied, those who cannot. Like I write about David Clark, who's the greatest goal scorer in England's history, but nobody knows who he is because he's actually blind. And so there's a lot of different situations and backgrounds that these players come from, and I hope that kids, regardless of where their background is, that they can simply ask, their parents, can I play this game too? Can I do it? And so I would hope that that's the type of conversation that they would have.
All right. You and I have to have a conversation here. There's a blind man who is the greatest scorer in England.
David Clark. Yes. So his story was that, they didn't have a lot of blind players. They didn't have any blind players, his parents were big Liverpool fans. So he naturally became a Liverpool fan and loved playing soccer. And so, they didn't have any organized leagues in England. There weren't not enough players. And it wasn't until I think in the early 90s that they finally had enough players who were blind, but were interested enough to play organized soccer. So he actually started late. He, I think, oh gosh, I can't remember the stat, but now there's they actually have enough players out there who are blind. They actually have blind soccer leagues all around the world now, And I don't know if it was, well, I take it back. I think it was because of David Clark,
Hmm.
I think because he was so passionate about it and that he wanted to learn how to play soccer and that they started creating resources for him, like a soccer ball with a little bell inside so that you could
Gonna say,
hear
yeah.
where
Hmm.
the ball is, and then having, fields that are, that have barriers so that it's not, so that the ball doesn't get away.
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, I think he's one of those players that literally changed the game so that everybody can play.
Yeah. I love that story. That's fascinating. One of the things too that I love that you just mentioned casually, a number of female players. I think it's super important for our young girls to understand that they absolutely can go and play competitive sports.
Yeah, and I set the tone in the book right away. My first chapter covers the 1999 women's team. They, I don't think I'm going out on a limb here, but that's the team that changed how people viewed not only women's soccer in America, but also women's sports.
Hmm.
Going, and they weren't even the first U.S. team to win the World Cup. I think that was in 1993. And so when there's a story about when they came back from winning the World Cup, only three people were waiting for them in the airport, and one of them was the bus driver, you know? So it actually took a little bit of time for them to gain momentum. They won a gold medal in 1996. Each of the players put in their own money in travel and marketing. They weren't given per diem or any marketing budget behind it. And then so by the time, 1999 rolled around, there was such a huge interest that they said, we need to play these in big stadiums. So, they did play at the Meadowlands. They played at Stanford. They played in Pasadena, so so much credit goes to that team because it also inspired so many other great female soccer players to come after them, like an Alex Morgan, like a Megan Rapinoe. So yeah, so that's the tone I wanted to set right away with that first chapter.
Yeah, yeah. So, how are you going to inspire FIFA to be more reasonable with their ticket prices and all the other nonsense that they're throwing for this World Cup? I can't believe it. I'm on my high horse here, and feel free not to comment. But boy, I got to tell you, I am very disappointed. I attended a World Cup game back in the '80s and got to see Maradona play, and it was great. And it was expensive then ish. It was expensive for me because I was poor, very poor. But it was something that this poor kid could go to. Now I can't even, it's crazy.
Yeah. I won't comment too much about it, but I will say that, living in San Francisco, we do have some matches that will be played at Levi's Stadium in Santa
Mhm.
Clara. And I've seen those ticket prices, and let's just say I have yet to purchase a ticket. So, I hope that as we get closer, June 10th is going to be here before we know it. And hopefully at some point people will see that, maybe it's in our best interest to lower these prices, because that's what, at its core, soccer is a family-oriented sport. That's what you hear about, it's not the big production that football and basketball are. Like soccer really is family oriented. It's very community driven. And
Yeah.
so hopefully they'll get a sense of that and understand that, it's that families are struggling these days. And, like it's not going to hurt them too much if you shave off a couple of dollars and allow them to have a really fun and memorable experience because who knows when the World Cup's going to be back here in the U.S. again.
Right, right. Yeah. That was something I've had an opportunity to perform throughout Central America, and that is one of the things I saw. And we weren't performing in big theaters or anything like that. It was villages and up in the mountains and whatnot. And everywhere we went, there was a soccer game, and people were out to watch it and cheer it on and to just be part of the fun.
Yeah, yeah, like I see that too. Even walking down the parks in San Francisco, I thought that was like some sort of semi-pro or organized league playing, but no, like these are just a bunch of people who who left work, got changed, and decided to play a game, and they're just as passionate. Like it's like it's such a fun sport to see and how people like really rally around it and see how passionate they are, and all it takes is a ball, maybe a net, but
Yeah.
not really, it's quite remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to I love planting seeds in authors' minds, thinking maybe, I hope you go back to the folks at Penguin and say, we should do, because I saw on social media that you're a fan of something that I'm a fan of, and say, we need an interesting stories of professional wrestling.
I would love that actually. I mean, my face just lights up, Like, can you imagine like just putting these stories together, and we're talking about like real life struggles when they were growing up, and then all of a sudden you're seeing them as part of storylines now, like I think that would be great. Like, you hear about those types of stories all the time about the sacrifices that people made just so that they could become professional wrestlers, uh, for some reason, I don't know why. Maybe it's top of mind because Backlash just ended, but like The Miz has a very fascinating story because he started off as a reality show person on MTV, and people really didn't like that about him. They thought he was just there for the spotlight, but he's been in this for like more than 20 years now. He's a Grand Slam champion, still very much involved. And so, like, I think those types of stories, they could say, wrestling may be fake, quote unquote, but these struggles that they went through are very, very real. And these are some of the wrestlers who went through X, Y, and Z to get to where they are. I'm all for it.
Yeah. I prefer choreographed or predetermined to fake, because I know what those bumps feel like.
Yeah, that's right. Those injuries are very real. I just watched the Hulk Hogan documentary, and I didn't realize how many times he did that leg drop and how much compression that took on his spine. That was very real. Those back surgeries were very real. So they put their body on the line every night just to entertain, and that absolutely needs to be commended.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned coming up, there are guys in tonight's they could be in a VFW hall, somewhere in some small town out there, wrestling for putting their bodies on the line for a hot dog and a Coke and a dream.
Yes. I've always been big on independent wrestling too, just because, it's, we were talking about minor league hockey and baseball, and how it starts too. And again, that's very community driven. And, I know you know this, like the wrestling community is a very diehard fan base. And so, if they see wrestling, I actually went to a Comic-Con over the weekend and we saw some Lucha Libre, a battle royal actually. And so, and it didn't matter who they were, like these are folks who aspire to make it big one day, and it starts in those fairgrounds. And the action is still awesome. As we saw people thrown over the top and people getting really excited about it. And so, and then seeing the person that won the battle royal and being really happy for that person. I don't care if it was choreographed. I don't care if it was scripted. Like it was a performance, and we're there to be entertained. And that is, it's exciting to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I want to put this on your radar. There's a group, I believe in California. They were on the podcast. They're called Lucha Lee Bros.
Lucha Lee Bros.
Yeah, and they do shows in libraries. Their whole thing is literacy. Come on out to the show, get your library card, read about it. They tell a story before they read a book before the show starts. And, good group of guys.
Yeah. Now I do need to ask, like, if they're wrestling, if they have matches in libraries, is it interrupted with a shh every now and then?
See, that's what the first time I performed in a library, I get hired, it was maybe 35, 36 years ago. And I'm like, can I like play music, and can do I got to be quiet and whisper and everything? They go, no, just go crazy. And I did, and I do. So that's cool.
Oh, that's great. I will definitely check that out.
Yeah. Hey, let's tell everybody where they can go to find out more about inspiring stories of soccer greats and find out more about Chris Navalta.
Yeah, definitely. You can go directly to the penguinrandomhouse.com website where it will be there. Just key in inspiring stories of soccer greats. I am at Chris Navalta on Instagram and X, so you can find me there. And I usually post, things about what's going on with the book, potentially an upcoming one that to be announced later on. And yes, there may be some wrestling photos as well.
Awesome. We've had a great time speaking to the author of Inspiring Stories of Soccer Greats. Great middle grade book from our guest, Chris Navalta. Hey, Chris, thanks so much for being with us.
This was wonderful. Thank you so much, Jelly. So happy to be here. So appreciate you having me.
Hey, you might have heard that we recently announced that The Adventures of Toby Baxter, Revenge of the Riverhome Rudabakers, written by Tim Wright, is a new Reading with Your Kids certified great read. In fact, we were so happy that all 5 of the Toby Baxter books have earned the certified great read award. But here's something important for authors to know. When a book earns our Certified Great Read Award, the recognition doesn't stop with the certificate. We share our review on the Reading with Your Kids blog. We post it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Goodreads, Books A Million. We create a custom video announcement celebrating the author's achievement. Then we share that video with our community of more than 120,000 followers across Facebook, Instagram, X, and LinkedIn. And of course, Tim Wright will have that video and he can share it wherever he wants to. Our goal isn't simply to give great books an award. Our goal is to help great books get discovered by more families, educators, librarians, and readers. If you've written a wonderful children's book and you'd like to learn more about the Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program, we'd love to tell you all about it. Just visit readingwithyourkids.com and click the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page. That's readingwithyourkids.com and click the Authors Click Here, because great books deserve to be celebrated and discovered. Join us right now from not too far away from our Reedville studios in the beautiful Granite State of New Hampshire. Our guest is here today to celebrate his new picture book. It's called Mr. Higgins Comforts a Family. It's part of the Mr. Higgins series. Please welcome to the show, David John Priest. David, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm looking forward. I was just sharing with David that we are looking to bring a rescue dog into our home, and Mr. Higgins is a rescue dog that is bringing some comfort to families.
Yes, he does. We got Mr. Higgins in 2014, and he was with us for the next 10 years. Mm-hmm. And he was a wonderful dog. He was very receptive, curious dog who taught us that being nice and showing compassion isn't just an everyday trait, but it's something that you do all the time. And it was some very powerful lessons that he showed to us.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I think it's a wonderful, and it's funny, it's just coincidental. Our priest out of nowhere decided to give a little homily on kindness and just how important it is for us to choose to be kind every day. And I think it's a great lesson to teach kids and to talk about with kids.
Oh, I do too. I think in this world that's so filled with conflict and negativism, we need to kind of reinforce that we can still be kind and we can still show compassion for those who are less fortunate than us.
Sure.
And we can still be curious about why they are the way they are and why that's okay. You know, that everybody can be different and we should celebrate that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think I'm very happy that people accept people who are different, because I think I'm pretty different. I don't fit into many places, and it's not just because my waist is getting bigger. It's we're all individuals, and I think when we are when we feel comfortable being ourselves, that's when we're happiest.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
So you were sharing with me that you had been living in LA doing designing communities and also writing screenplays. Where did the inspiration to become a children's author come from?
That came from the time that I retired, or I should say I moved to the next chapter in my life, which is now, and I wanted to explore children's picture books.
Mm-hmm.
I had a great teacher living with me, and his name was Mr. Higgins.
Yeah.
And from his stories, moments, incidences in his life, he gave me the inspiration that we should tell these stories about him and what he gave to the community and to all of us.
Yeah, so nice. There are 4 books in the series.
Yes.
You are sharing with me. A Home for Mr. Higgins, Mr. Higgins to the Rescue, the newest one, Mr. Higgins Comforts a Family, and there was one I wasn't able to write down.
And that was Mr. Higgins to the Rescue.
Okay, excellent, yeah.
And the first one, deals with that everyone deserves a home.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Higgins had a home, and then they put him back into the shelter, and he was adopted again. And that didn't work out for some reason. And he was being protective of his yard. And a snoopy neighbor came in when the family wasn't around. And Mr. Higgins said, "Oh, what's going on here?" And the neighbor started to kick Mr. Higgins. And so Mr. Higgins fought back and bit his left leg. Now, biting him or taking him by the hem of his pants and showing him out to the yard, we will never know. But Mr. Higgins was given an option. Either he was going to be adopted or he was going to be put to sleep. Mm. And a neighbor of ours would see us walking Thelma the dog, and this is a picture of Thelma. And she said, "I know you two would love to have another dog to keep Thelma busy." And so we thought about it. We went and met Mr. Higgins. And and the moment I saw him, I said, "We've got to adopt him." There was something, the relationship between the two of us, that I said, he needs a home. Mm-hmm. So the third book is about a home and how he gets adjusted. And the second one, Mr. Higgins overhears Jim and I discussing the fact that he was a rescue dog and that he had special needs. And so he went out and he tried to find what is a rescue dog and what are special needs and what are people who have special needs. And he's able to solve that. And the answer is he's the one that rescues us. And the community. And the third one, he sees Thelma the dog. We're out walking in the park and without our leashes, I know. And a group of dogs came up to Thelma, and she was just kind of giving it to them. And they basically turned on her. And then Mr. Higgins, this is a picture of Mr. Higgins, came to her rescue and barked. And he might have been a small dog compared to the other dogs, but they were frightened and they ran away. So that's the second story. And the third story, the fourth story was Mr. Higgins Comforts a Family. Mm-hmm. And it's about the passing of time. Thelma the dog is getting old, and it's decided, and then she finally decides that it was her time to go. And everybody in the family was devastated. Charlie, the tuxedo cat with one pink toe, was especially devastated. And Mr. Higgins decides that he would comfort the individuals of our family. So he provided comfort to Jim and myself and to Charlie, the tuxedo cat with one pink toe. And so that's the story of the fourth one.
Yeah. It sounds like there's a lot of different conversations that families can have as they're reading the Mr. Higgins series. Certainly in Mr. Higgins Comforts a Family, the whole conversation about grief and saying goodbye to someone we love.
Yes, it's very true. And those conversations aren't usually had by a family.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have found, we kind of wrote these books with a pre-K to age 7 or 8. But as we have seen in the first 3 books, it's for children of all ages. And we're seeing parents and grandparents and teachers reading these stories out loud. And they're all getting something important about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, it is reaching a wider audience.
Yeah. Boy, how does that feel, seeing or hearing, knowing that families are reading your book together?
It was very, well, I found it very gratifying, to tell you the truth, because, again, the books were written for a certain age group. But we have found that children are very tuned in to what's going on, and they're deeper thinkers than we kind of imagine them to be.
Mm-hmm.
So each of the themes of the books, the children gets it. And when I hear back from some of the parents that their child, after reading a Mr. Higgins book, go to school and they see a child in their class sitting alone at lunchtime, and the one that read the Mr. Higgins books go up to them and said, "Come on, do you want to join us for lunch?
Mm-hmm.
Can we sit with you?"
Mm-hmm.
And so they're actually implementing, the little acts of kindness every day. And that is what I find to be so gratifying.
Sure, I bet. We were mentioning earlier that you had been in LA doing screenplays, and also you were a playwright. How difficult was it moving from writing movies to writing children's picture books?
Oh, it was very interesting. My screenplays and plays were kind of dealt with complicated relationships and situations. And moving from that kind of scripture or format and storytelling to the one we have with children's picture books took, to me, it's more difficult because you have a word limit and you have to tell a story, and the story has to be told in kind of the 3-act structure.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to tell it in a way that uses everyday words. You've got to kind of challenge the reader.
Mm-hmm.
And so you try to integrate more advanced words into their conversations. But I think it's been a great experience. And besides the 4 books that we have now, we have several more to be published when the time is right. And we've also adapted the first 3 books into a children's play that is performed like a storytelling theater, and we have that out. And just last month, there was a request from a Hollywood producer who was interested in children's programs. So we pitched him the idea of Mr. Higgins, and he seemed very interested. Now, as you know, nothing can happen from that, but we took the initiative and we sent it out there. Right. So who knows,
Yeah, well, that's one of the things. We've talked about how surprised I was to learn that a traditionally published children's book can take 3 to 4 years from the time a publisher buys the manuscript until the time the book hits the bookstore. And I also know that the same thing with Hollywood. It probably moves even slower.
Yeah, it is more. And when you consider, in both cases, that you're up against tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of scripts and stories that's out there. You're very blessed even to be considered. And the first Mr. Higgins books, A Home for Mr. Higgins, really took like 3 years because we couldn't work directly with the illustrator. We had to work through the production manager. And then he would relay our comments and concerns to the illustrator. And this went back and forth for years. And finally we got the book out. We were satisfied by it. The second book went in. It wasn't so bad, the second book. We got a good illustrator. But then the third one came and they thought of another illustrator. And so that was another learning curve that we had to take on the third book. So every book is a challenge, but life is full of challenges.
Absolutely. Well, we don't want to challenge our listeners, so let's tell them where they can go to find out more about Mr. Higgins and find out more about you.
Well, they can go on the internet. The book is found the books are found on Amazon, as well as all of the bookstores' websites. And you may be able to find some in your bookstores around. And if they don't have it, they will order it for you. So I would say go out there and learn it, okay?
Awesome. We've had a great time speaking to the author of the Mr. Higgins series. The latest book is Mr. Higgins' Comforts of Family. Our guest has been the author, David John Priest. David, thanks so much for being on.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Jed. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. If this episode made you smile or gave you something to think about, please consider sharing a link to the show with someone you love, especially a soccer-loving someone you love. Leave a 5-star review and, of course, subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Chris Navalta. Please be sure to check out Inspiring Stories of Soccer Greats. Also want to thank David John Priest. Please be sure to check out his Mr. Higgins series. I want to thank my incredible team, Chris Stardy, Daylene Rose, Advina Lopez, Ella Badier. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so very much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every single time you read with your kids. Hey, I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.
Toby, here's a warning from the roof. Friends stick